All right, time for another mock draft reaction. This time, the great Nick Wright has done a mock draft, which, hey, you can check out the video if you want to. You can see the name here on it right here if that's what you're, if you want to hear his thoughts, which I would have to say, whether you like Nick Wright or dislike Nick Wright, there's always entertainment to be had, I think, when something like this happens. So, without further ado, let's get into the list. I'm not watching the video. I'm just going to look at the actual picks themselves. If you want to hear more of the logic, you have to watch the video himself. Try to do things that way to hopefully not, get people to watch that content. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. This is my first reaction, and okay, well, 4 quarterbacks off the board right away. I'm looking through it right now. Caleb Williams, that's going to happen. I think we all agree with it. Jaden Daniels a lot of people are saying Jaden Daniels is going to go number 2. I mean, that's honestly a very common take at this point. In fact, it almost feels like a hot take to say Drake May at this point is going number 2. But this is a very hot take. It's J.J. McCarthy at 3, which I'll say this is not the only time I've seen that happen. I have seen people throw that name out there. And for the Giants who would trade up to 4 in this scenario, it's one of those things where I have seen people say like maybe the Giants should trade up a little. I wouldn't hate that. If Drake May is available, if he does actually fall, moving up a couple of spots, really not the worst idea in the world. Now, again, for Arizona, certainly they will take that. But the Giants, do they feel like they have to trade up? Is someone else going to jump them if they don't trade up? Because, the Chargers and the Cardinals ahead of them both have their quarterbacks. But it's kind of interesting. They also have the Bears trading up for Marvin Harrison Jr., who, again, I think the Bears would love this. I think Bears fans would be very excited about something like this. Are the Chargers going to miss out on Marvin Harrison Jr.? And are the Cardinals going to miss out on Harrison Jr.? Sure, the Cardinals end up with neighbors, but maybe they say, you know what, we just want the elite guy. And for the Chargers, you're now kind of trading away from the elite top guys, although there might still be one to fall to them. Joe Alt at number 7 and Dallas Turner at number 8 have been almost unanimously put on those draft boards, so I do think that is going to happen. So, okay, definitely some hot takes, but, again, they're not hot takes I haven't seen before. I certainly would not put Drake May as my quarterback 4, but, maybe some people view it differently. Let's continue on this mock draft to the next, 8 teams. We have Romeo Odunze. So yeah, I had a feeling this was happening at 9 if he was still on the board. Chargers trade back. So Chargers probably end up feeling pretty good about this situation, right? They do trade back and end up still getting the receiver that they want. So I think that's or not maybe not the receiver they want, but a good receiver, one of the top receivers, and get some extra draft capital. So that certainly works. Again, I do think the Chargers would definitely be likely to trade back. I just don't know if Marvin Harrison Jr. is still on the board. I think that might change things, but I don't know. Bowers to the Jets totally makes sense. Quinyon Mitchell to the Vikings, who, again, with the top 8, they did not trade for one of those quarterbacks. So they just sit where they're at and are, I guess, building for the future, maybe tank for a season. It's an option for sure. Although, I don't know. I'm wondering what the Vikings are going to do. Feels like they're up to something, but I'm not sure what. Jared Verse to the Broncos makes sense. Terrion Arnold to the Raiders. These are picks that, sure, don't really have too many, not really a lot of hot takes here, but some smart picks, things that I think you'll certainly, expect to see or wouldn't be shocked to see. I do wonder, 3 corners going this high. I don't see that too often, but I wouldn't hate it. It is a good corner draft and all that good stuff. So let's continue down the list. Why don't we? Brian Thomas Jr. goes at 17 to the Jaguars, which again is something that I have seen get mocked before. It's something that I think I did in one of my mock drafts. There's a lot of logic to be had in something like this because just they could use an outside receiver. Now, again, the kind of question is, can Brian Thomas really be that, flourish and like being a true number 1 wide receiver right out of the gate? I don't know, but it's interesting. It's certainly interesting, and I do think that he will possibly still be there unless a team jumps Jacksonville. So it's an option on the table, and I wouldn't hate it. We then have really a run of kind of some really good picks, I feel like. Picks that I think teams would be very happy to have. Some of those offensive linemen taken earlier, I would not have taken over Fuaga and Fashanu, who are, I think, 2 really good tackles. Fuaga might be a guard, but either way, two really good players that go at 19 and 20. Nick Wright, like some other people, has Newton going ahead of Murphy, which is, again, I like Murphy better, but I don't think it's a crazy take. I think they're really good players. And for Cincinnati, they could certainly use one. For the Dolphins, they could use a Wilkins replacement. Dolphins have a few holes, quite frankly. And, the Steelers and the Rams both also have offensive line issues, so kind of sharing those up would make sense. The Eagles have corner issues, so getting Nate Wiggins would certainly make sense. And then Laiulatu to the Vikings. Again, it's interesting because I haven't seen many mock drafts that don't have Minnesota making trades and don't have Minnesota going for a quarterback. So them kind of just picking two good players is very fascinating to me. Again, why did they trade for that first round pick if they weren't going to go quarterback, I think is the question. But I don't know. It's certainly interesting. Graham Barton to the Cowboys, who's listed at tackle, but is a center, in my opinion, would totally make sense as they could definitely use a center. Finally, the last 8 in the first round here, we have Armarius Mims, something I've seen happen a decent amount, and Chop Robinson going to the Buccaneers also makes sense. Kool-Aid McKinstry is something I haven't really seen him mock to the Cardinals too much, which is weird because they could use a corner and he's like usually picked around this spot, but that does totally make sense to me, and I think would be a smart pick. The Bills, again, Adonai Mitchell here. I think they would have loved if Brian Thomas fell a little bit more. Maybe they could have even made a trade. But, again, kind of makes sense. It's a deep wide receiver class. So I'm kind of warming on the idea of, even if you feel like it's a bit of a reach, maybe just take the best of the kind of day 2 receivers here at 28. It might not be the worst idea in the world. There are a couple guys I do have higher on my board, though. Chris Braswell is interesting because I think when I was doing my initial evaluation, I thought he was going to be a lot of people's I thought he was going to be most day 1 mock drafts and stuff, but I haven't really seen that too much, which is interesting. But I wasn't crazy about Braswell. I think there's other players I would go with. That's just me personally. And same thing with Tyler Guyton. I get that, the Lions getting an edge rusher and the Ravens getting an offensive lineman both would help them. I just don't know if that's necessarily the move. Also at 31 with the 49ers, so Jackson Powers-Johnson, it's tough because, so the 49ers do need offensive line help, and I think that's why Nick is giving them Powers-Johnson. My criticism, though, of this selection is I don't know if center is really what they need. I think they could probably be better off with a tackle or a guard. So maybe Powers-Johnson can play, guard, or maybe something can happen. I just don't know if that's exactly the perfect fit. That being said, pick 31, getting Jackson Powers-Johnson feels like kind of a steal, so I would not hate it. And then for the Chiefs, again, Troy Franklin just not a first-round receiver to me. Again, receivers are hard. I've been wrong a million times. I'll be wrong a million more. I'm not sure if he's the receiver I would go with, and I'd be very interested in hearing what Nick Wright had to say, as I know he is obviously a very big Chiefs fan, so it's perhaps possible that he knows something I don't with how that team is constructed and why that he feels that move would make sense. But yeah, as a whole, I'll be honest. We hear, okay, Nick Wright, mock draft, what's the crazy hot takes? It's actually a pretty good mock draft. I feel like, pretty well done. I think you could argue on the first couple of picks, there was this is the hot take, the Drake May at 4 and the Marvin Harrison at 5. Early on, it gets wild, but I feel like after that, actually pretty tame and reasonable and well thought out mock draft. So, okay, good job, Nick Wright, I suppose. I thought it was pretty good. But yeah, okay, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. What did you think of this mock draft? Again, watch the video yourself if you want to hear more of his thoughts on why he put those players there. But those are my thoughts on what would happen, what I would think if those players were drafted there. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. Of course, as always, thanks for watching.